Welcome to another Dragon Fire.Sides talk. I have a special guest today. This is not the normal way that I find people to talk to on this podcast, but I recently did a podcast with Dr. Gretchen Badami, and we had a lot of engagement when we shared that on social media, including some comments from my guest today, Dr. Mary Cooke, or Molly. You go by Molly. Um,
Yep.
Molly, so I don't know you as well as some of the other people that I've talked to. Basically, our first introduction was through social media. And why don't you start by giving us a little background on your origin story, and then we can get into what we're going to talk about today.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
I love this podcast. I love where you're going with it, and it just hits a lot of the sweet spots. So I'm all on board with that. Um, Also, all due respect to Gretchen, and I trip over her last name. Is it Badami?
It's Badami, yeah.
Badami. I did think her interview was really great, and I thought she was very articulate. And I don't think that you get a lot of engagement and strong comments unless you're coming across strong. So hopefully she
Absolutely.
takes that to heart. And so my origin story is, as a patient for years when I was working at Dow Jones in Princeton, acupuncture helped me address symptoms of ADHD and autism, helped me get my life under control. I think it like got the dopamine flowing and like my brain chemistry worked out. So I used it for years. I didn't understand it. My practitioner was mercurial, like just a nut job. But it was such a profoundly and concretely effective intervention, unlike anything I'd experienced before, that eventually I had to make a choice. Am I going to go further with Dow Jones, or am I going to do something that really feels like a meaningful calling? And I went all in with acupuncture, um, and didn't give up. So that's kind of my origin story. I went to Pacific College in San Diego. I worked as an assistant or intern at the Pacific Center with Alex Tiberi and Rick Gold. I did student council and got to know Jack Miller. I went to 5 years of symposium. So I really tried to get to know the community in San Diego and the profession at large. Um, and then once I was out in the workplace, it was like every man for himself, and it was not pretty. I think that the most exciting thing I did was when I did 3 years at sea, which was nowhere on my aspiration chart. Like my dream board didn't have acupuncture at sea, but it turned out to be a remarkable experience. So,
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So let's start by let me just summarize kind of what my talk with Gretchen to the best of my ability was about. We sort of ran the gamut a little bit. We were trying to address what's been going on with the schools. This is the fact that I think 11 or 12 schools have shut down in the last 3 to 5 years. And in addition to that, other schools have suspended programming. Some of the doctorate programs have shut down at schools that are still in operation. Um, there's been obviously a complete zeitgeist shift since COVID in terms of people's faith in the institutions that are supposed to exist to protect us, and so the interest in acupuncture is increasing, but the people graduating is going to slow down for a while until we can contend with what's been going on. And I'm sure we talked about other things too, but that was kind of the focus of it. So can you either summarize or tell me what created such a strong reaction from listening initially, or what you clearly have something to say, and I want to give you space to say it. So, can you tell me kind of what motivated you to get on the podcast with me and have this conversation?
yes, I did not print out, what I wrote, and so I, I I'm not really sure where to begin, but basically, I saw the interview before, I saw that interview. And what I recently had, because I was recently licensed in New Jersey, and I had a job interview with a local clinic. And at that job interview, her first question to me was, "What's my zodiac sign?" She
Mm.
wanted to know if I was compatible. That's what she was going to base her hiring on. And that's ultimately what she based not hiring me on. She asked my religious beliefs, whether I believe in God. She asked me, I'm like feeling it. You
Yeah.
want emotion? I'm feeling
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I have a doctorate. I have $270,000 in debt. And it took 3 years for me to fulfill the credentials to get the New Jersey license, including 5 months with the New Jersey Acupuncture Board, waiting for that license to come through. And my job, my employability is linked to my zodiac sign. I have 10 years of practice. I've seen thousands of patients. I am not an entrepreneur. I'm a healer. And those things are not always compatible. And to have it all like you're an Aries and I'm a Pisces, and that doesn't work. It's beyond. It's beyond. And that was in my belly. That's where that I am so tired of hearing about the, mindset stuff and just put yourself out there, hang your shingle. It's so disheartening. Um, it, the there's nothing, I don't even know what to say. I think it says it all. The
Mm.
amount that you have to go through. And like, if I don't earn a living as an acupuncturist, think about the impact that has on my family, on how people view me, on paying that debt every month when I'm going to, how am I going to do that? First of all, I mean, as a 50-year-old woman, putting myself back into the marketplace, looking for a job, the jobs that are available to me are $25 an hour. I've been in acupuncture for, 15 years. And so it's just, what are you going to do? And you get tired of being told, and it feels like you're getting gaslit. Like, we need jobs. We need employers to not be insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel that. So I've been working exclusively with acupuncturists for just over 2 years now. And one of the things that seems to be an across the board to everybody that I talk to are feelings like the ones that you have. Either, there's not enough jobs available, or the jobs that are available suck. You spoke to this a little bit before we started the podcast. The way that acupuncturists are treated, or the work environments, are not always in everybody's best interest. Uh, the preparedness that you get from school to actually start a business, be an entrepreneur, figure out how to fund your business, figure out how to grow and scale your business. It's not something that you have any mental space for, especially right off of boards or whatever you had to go through to get your license. Um, it the feeling of being gaslit is what I had when I graduated, and that was in 2009. And it doesn't seem like much has changed.
Same
If
here.
anything,
Same here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
If anything, uh, it feels worse and harder than it might have even back then. And that was pre-social media, if you think about it. I think Facebook went public in 2007 or something like that. And so Facebook ads didn't even come out till like 2010 or something. So that wasn't even a thing. Like, how do you find people? How do you talk to people? How do you start a conversation? It was like legacy media that you can't afford that as a small business. Um, and so this is the feeling that needs to be addressed. And it feels like we're being gaslit because we were being gaslit. That's the truth of it from my perspective. From
Yeah.
my perspective, that's the truth of it,
Yeah.
is that we were not set up for success. We were trained on a model that doesn't really fit here. In China, you can go to school, you can focus on your studies, and then you can get a job. Here, those are few and far between. So most people have to figure out how to start a company, and most people don't know how to do that or have the funds to do that. Like, that's why there's such a high failure rate. And when I just say that, like, I think that had a lot to do with why we got such high intense engagement with the posts that we made, is because the title of the podcast was something like why 80% of practitioners fail within the first 5 years. And when I just say that statistic, which is true, um, people get charged up and they feel like we're putting some kind of onus of the blame of that statistic on the practitioner, and that is the last thing that I would want to do. I think it's you got a bad gig, and it just doesn't have to be that way. There's other industries that went through kind of the same growth pains that we're experiencing, like chiropractors that figured it out. And the only way that they were able to do that was to come together. And so that's why I invited you on the podcast. It's like we need to have these conversations. We need to talk about the difficult stuff. We need to get these feelings out that essentially are stagnations of some sort or another. And we need to be able to nurture each other and figure out the hard answers to the hard problems. So yeah. So if you would let me ask some questions about some of these feelings, let's and we can kind of see if we can either solve a problem, answer a question, or just offer each other some support. If that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. So my first question is one of the things that you said already is that you're a practitioner, not an entrepreneur, and that you will die if you hear another talk about mindset. Um, yes, I totally agree with that sentiment. But I think that that is the first lever that needs to be unlocked, is that it takes a very particular kind of mindset to be able to do the dance between being a practitioner and having a practice that is providing real value and transformation in your patients' lives, and figure out the financing of the things. And those seem to feel antithetical. So, from your perspective, how do we address that if it seems like they're at odds with each other?
Uh, okay. So I think there's a common premise that is, broadly adopted in the profession that leads to the gaslighting. And the premise is that the cost of education, and that's very, very high student loan cap, speaks to how much you should be earning as an acupuncturist. And I think that the older generations of acupuncturists paid much less for their tuition. And the ones who were successful, they paid it off. And the ones who weren't successful didn't suffer quite so much. And so they didn't make a big stink about it. But to me, the math doesn't work out. Most people are making, what is it, 50 to 80,000?
Mhm.
And so, we're stuck in an equation that doesn't work out. And the at the heart of that is the value of acupuncture to the patient. Because a lot of coaches will say, well, charge what you're worth. People want to, or, if they pay more, they're going to value it more. Well, actually, I'm not an ordained priest. I'm not a counselor. I'm an acupuncturist and I have healthy boundaries and I want to help my patients and I want them to get on. And so there's a lot of business models that are fundamentally tied to poor ethics. You don't want to have people coming back every week. And that gives us a bad name. It shifts the emphasis to business models and business success when our emphasis should always be beneficence and getting paid, of course. I don't have a problem with acupuncturists getting paid a living wage. But beneficence, not business. And there's something really impure or corrupt about running a practice where you're cultivating dependence or running, I don't know what the word is. I'm sort of running out of words because I maybe talk too much. I'm trying to feel it out, but
All
maybe you
good.
can maybe you can respond because I have a
Yeah.
feeling you've got something to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So from my perspective, those things are not mutually exclusive. I think that it is absolutely the reason we have such a bad taste for things like sales and marketing and self-promotion and the economy of everything is because there's so many people that have become rich off the backs of the downtrodden. That there's so many people that do economics in a way that is it's benefiting the 1% and say fuck you to the 99%. It's something that we see time and time and time again. The pharmacological model for medicine is the perfect example of this. This is something that will literally, rather than make ethical assessments of the efficacy of their medicine, will make economic assessments of the financial efficacy of their medicine at the expense of the people that are taking the medicine. And so because of that, those are the models that we have as examples for this. We have a tendency to think that if I charge too much, I'm being greedy, or that if I'm making my practice something that is tantamount to a transactional thing, then I have to be treating it as an either or, that either I'm taking care of my patients or I'm taking care of my pocketbook, and I can't do both at the same time. And I don't agree with that. I think that it has everything to do with your relationship with money. And if you just replace money with prosperity, it's to me as simple as, if you're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to stay in practice, pay your bills, take care of your family, then what you're able to give to your patients is going to be affected by that. And if you are sitting in a place of stability and security, and even, God forbid, abundance, you A, deserve that, and B, that is something that will spill over your cup into the treatments that you give to your patients. That's a core ethic that I believe. I think that we've all been raised in a society that has a dysfunctional relationship with money, and thinks that wanting prosperity and wanting stability and wanting abundance is something that is gross. And it's because the examples that we have to look at are gross. But that's 1% of the population. That means that there are successful people that are not that just aren't public enough for us to know what their lives look like and what their ethics look like.
I completely agree, and I think that's beautifully illustrated. I think, that's an ideal, but I think that that narrative is part of the gaslighting that's happening. The acupuncturist that I went to, that I mentioned before, he was seeing 20 patients a day. He took 4 weeks of vacation a year. He had a big family and a big house and drove 2 nice cars, had it all, right? I was like, that's what I want, dude. I don't want to be a big time. I just want to help my community, make a good living, have a nice house, have a family. That's what I wanted. I didn't want anything big. And I didn't have any judgment, like I thought that was ideal. I think that's the American dream. But um what I've awakened to is, like, for instance, if you have a backache, um you can, everybody gets a backache at some point in their life, strained back. You can take Tylenol for 3 days and it's going to go away, or you can go get three acupuncture sessions, or even one acupuncture session. It's not financially viable. It's just not. And it's the time, it's the money, and da da. So what are we, what is the value of what we're bringing to market? I think that the marketplace value for acupuncture is not strict, really aligned with, um, I don't think people, I think there's an identity crisis for acupuncturists, and in the marketplace, there's not a clear understanding of what acupuncturists are offering because of the diversity of practitioners and the diversity of what's being offered. Some people show up as ordained ministers of Taoism. That's how they show up in practice. And then some show up as orthopeds or orthopods or as chiropractors. They show up and they do adjustments. There's such a huge array of expressions of the profession. There's no, what is it, KSAs, knowledge, standards, and abilities. Like, the standardization is so lacking that there's a lot of room for quacks. There's just a lot of room for quackery. And that's what troubles me, is that you do see practitioners who are stringing their patients along, who are overselling their supplements, who, make bigger promises than they can deliver, who are counseling or ministering to their patients in a way that, is not within the realm of our responsibilities.
Yeah, that of course that is going to be true. When you have a broad population of people, the ethical variability, the diversity of competencies. There's yeah, it's hard to quantify, a percentage of people that are in this for the wrong reasons, or a percentage of people that are in this because their financial model is predatory in some kind of a way. Like those are essentially things that we can't really contend with, as like you and I can't find an answer to the person that is a charlatan, or it's taking advantage of people and over treating and over prescribing and doing like that, other than to do it better within the frame of our own ethic. I think that, this idea that equating back treatments with acupuncture to Tylenol, I understand that. But I could come back at you with the same thing and say, what is the value of somebody who has gone through IVF and hasn't been successful in bringing a child to bear, and then had acupuncture, and maybe even with another cycle, and was successful in having a child? What is the dollar value equation for that? It's you can't measure that. Like the things that we can contend with inside of our medicine, um, in terms of the scope of that, is so transformative compared to treating people like cars or mechanics, that you replace parts and you cut things out, and you try to reduce everything to a single mechanism of action and eliminate the enemy. It's a warfare tactic. It's not a holistic tactic. It's not even a tactic. It's a lifestyle, and it's something that is representative of nurturing people in a way that they can't get in allopathic medicine. And so, for me, a lot of this is about framing. It's that we sort of have a schizophrenic relationship with our medicine, because everything that we're exposed to is telling us that it should be transactional, that it should be something that can be connected to time. What's the value of each needle? What's the value of each treatment? What if I put, electrodes on it? What if I have a PEMF machine, a PEMF machine? What, like how many treatment modalities can I stack so that I can maximize, um, the how much I charge for each treatment? That is not what I'm talking about at all. There's pricing models that we can even borrow from Eastern methods that are efficacious now in business. Like, you can have membership models now where it is designed around, Ayurvedic and TCMs that sort of regard the doctor as the person who is there to keep us healthy. And so they pay us every single month on a membership to maintain health. And then when they get sick, they don't have to pay us. You can do that now. Like we have technologies that enable us to set up membership pricing in a way that understands that everybody that's on the membership isn't going to get a treatment every single time they could get a treatment. We're going to probably, you know, have 20% to 40% of the treatments that we're obligated to because of the number of memberships that we have. But when they don't come in, that just gives me room to treat somebody who's actually sick and needs more of my attention, or something like that. Like, we can do that now. So I hear you loud and clear. I believe that what you're saying feels real, is real from your perspective. But I think that there's other ways that we can look at it, and what we have to do, we're obligated to do, in order to let our medicine survive first and then thrive, is we have to find a pathway that does align with our values, is efficacious, is something that enables us to get the message out to people of what we can actually do. And then, in terms of the cost equation and the pricing strategy for all of that, we have to find something that aligns, and we absolutely can. We don't have to be like them. No, I am definitely not promoting that. Like, I don't want you to overcharge. I don't want you to force people to come back even when they don't need it. The whole reason that we got into medicine in the first place is because we believe that it is in fact possible for bodies to heal themselves with a little bit of nurturing, and we shouldn't have to treat somebody for life for something, with the rare exception. Um,
Yeah, there's things that need constant treatment,
sure, sure.
benefit of constant treatment. Yeah.
But but that's not the goal, right? It's not like to give somebody a taste and then they're hooked and now they have to keep coming back forever because we got them into our system and they're trapped. Like that exists, but that's not what we should be modeling our business around, right? Like there's other possibilities. It's not either or. It's you are sort of the pen is in your hand and you can paint whatever you want to.
Yeah, I hear like what I hear from what you're saying is like you want to take the perspective of, what's within your control and what's in your sort of what's on your page, what's on your table, and how can I optimize this situation? And that's a very constructive and empowered approach, obviously. I am a systems thinker and I tend to like always want to expand my viewpoint or my position, like my what's the word? Like how far I can see. Um, so I guess that's where I'm coming in is like we've got thousands of acupuncturists who have excessive debt that they can't pay and no jobs and like that really brutal reality of graduating with a ton of debt and then be expecting to like open a business and take on 2 more years of like business building on top of that. Um, so there's, again, that equation that just will make, a grown man cry sort of. Um, but I'm also looking at, with the last 10 years of research in acupuncture and the recent recommendations for acupuncture that it like accessibility and public health are a big part. Like there are these two dynamics that should be able to mesh. The one dynamic is that medicine needs acupuncture and it's going to use acupuncture because now they understand the technology. They don't have to use LACs. They can use anybody. Doctors, nurses, they can use anybody. But those needles are going to go in. That's what's going to happen. You're going to get the ear needle in the ER. You're going to get the, whatever it is. And then the other thing is like this trench of practitioners who are just, sold up the river, tons of debt, no future. And so like somehow, how can we get those two things to work out together in a beautiful way?
Yeah, that's what I think has to happen. I recently talked to Dr. Andy Rosenfarb, and that was one of the things that he brought up. He's like, it's the demand is there, so the services will be available, and either we're going to be a part of this that service solution, or we're going to be left behind, and other people will take it on. It's just what you said is that if we can't weather this storm, then 600 credit, 300 credit weekend seminars are going to be, how well your acupuncturist at a hospital is able to provide that, or your PTs are going to be providing drive needling and equating that as the same thing. Like it's already happening, and I don't see that changing unless we can become a bigger part of the conversation, and we should be, and we need to. But that means that people don't feel like having the conversation need to have the conversation. People that never envisioned themselves stepping
Yeah,
up need to step up. And
100%.
yeah, and the other side of that is that people like me need to come in and show you guys the ropes as far as how to grow a business without indebting yourself to some other thing that is next to your student loan debt and that you're obligated to fulfill. There are simple solutions to these problems now. Like we have more ways of communicating with each other than we ever have. Ads are cheaper to run now than they ever have been. There are more frameworks and playbooks that you can literally paint by numbers in terms of how to structure an offer, and you can do it in a way that it feels like a love letter to your audience instead of marketing to your audience. Like holistic marketing is a thing, and it needs to be what it claims to sell. So that's kind of what I'm advocating for, is to understand marketing from a different perspective, is to understand that, yes, the drug ads that you see are terrible. They spend more time talking about side effects than they do about what it's supposed to treat, and the side effects are always worse than the thing that they're trying to address. Like that exists, and that's what people have been trained on to like digest. But we don't have to be that. Why would we have to be that? We can be whatever we want to be. We are the what we're the punks in the medical community, right? Like we're the counterculture to what the medical community represents, and that needs to shine through in everything that we do. And we have to. We're the only people that can beat the drum of what we have to say. We have to, because nobody's going to do it for us. Like literally, the idea that I said something on the last podcast that somebody else took an issue with in terms of saying that the feds are shutting down the schools, and technically that's not exactly true, but the pressure that they can apply to the schools to get schools to shut down is real. It's fucking real. Like they can threaten funding. That's real. And so if these are the people that are saying we're not doing a good enough job, and if you're not careful, we're going to defund your entire industry from being able to bring new practitioners into the marketplace, then we're in trouble. So what are we going to do about this? We can't be afraid to be successful. Can't be afraid to be successful. We have to all be successful. That's what has to happen. So, and it's going to be more of the onus of that is going to fall on the people that are already licensed than the people that are going to become licensed at some point, because that pathway is really murky right now. So,
Yeah, that's a really good point that the people who are experienced now, the people who are thriving right now, there is a certain onus on them, us, to become successful and to find a way through. And I I just and what I hear so much hope, and you're, like where I'm like in this pretty dark place at the moment, all things considered. I hear that there's a lot of hope in your approach and your perspective. I am, I'm skeptical by nature, um, which is probably characteristic of many of my peers. So are you saying that you think that this, that the resources are there, that every acupuncturist who's struggling right now and would like to have a full-time practice with full-time income, that is like that door is open, like you can do that, everybody can do that, anybody could do that, is that basically, and that
yes,
you'd like to see everybody doing that?
yes, this is like, I have to have these come to Jesus moments with every single one of my clients, because there is a path. Everybody has social media and is free. Like any one of you can have a viral post that gets seen by millions of people, and not putting your face out there and talking to a prospective audience. It's just silly. There's no reason to not do that. People still don't know what acupuncture can treat, and they don't know what else is in the TCM pantheon outside of acupuncture. They don't understand the medicine, they don't understand the terminology, they don't understand, like nobody has sat them down and made them feel like this avatar of a human needs what I have to offer. This is why they should care. This is who it's for. This is how it works. And this is, these are all of the reasons A to Z of why you should be running out your door and booking a treatment now. Not like yesterday was the best time to get a treatment. Like we have to help people understand that we're not shamans, and this isn't woo. Like like science is starting to catch up with this esotericism that's been around for thousands of years. Like
I
we are
agree.
starting to understand in inside of the quantum terminology and quantum physics and all of that kinds of things, how things can exist in superpositions, and how mechanism of action can interface with our three-dimensional reality outside of our three-dimensional reality. Like that is something that's huge. Nobody has ever had the lexicon of what we do explained in a way that aligns with kind of modern society and modern ways of thinking before. Um, but I think you could probably say that people were more understanding of what the esoteric language actually meant, and we're a little more, obtuse to that. But all that is just to say that you literally have free advertising channels at your disposal 24/7. You're on there yourselves 24/7, and you're not using them to promote yourselves. That's just dumb. Um, I get that it requires confidence that you may not have. I get that there's a method to how you should structure these things that needs to be learned, or you have to have somebody providing it for you, doing it for you. Understand all of that. It's always going to be an equation between time for money. You either have time to spend on it or you have money to spend on it. And that is a dance, that is a pendulum swing that goes back and forth depending on outcomes, right? But everybody can do this. What I'm doing is not something that is tantamount to rocket science. These are simple tools, and having the space to focus on it is a challenge. And especially the busier you are, that's a real challenge that needs to be addressed. But like that's just one example. Like putting a post on TikTok or Facebook is something that literally anybody could do. And having a post that's not perfect, that's embarrassing, that you feel like you really screwed the pooch and you didn't communicate your message well, is going to do 10,000 times more for you than not having one at all, withholding the perfect post because you're still working on it, working on it, working on it, and you never deliver it. That's just it. We have to tell people what we do, why it works, why they should care, why this is something that solves a societal problem that needs to be solved right now. And until we're having those conversations and creating visibility for our community at large, we're not going to be a part of the conversation. We're just not. Like, we're not going to be invited to the table. Have you seen this? Was it the Diary of a CEO? He just had like a panel of four women talking about what's been going on with um, what are they, removing the black box for perimenopause hormone replacement therapies. I don't know if I said that right, but um, I was on another podcast, and the person, Dr. Chloe Weber, was mentioning that. She's like, we have to be at that table. There should have been an acupuncturist on that panel talking about what we know when it comes to women's health specifically. Why weren't we there? Because nobody's standing up and saying, hey, we're here and we have something to say too. So that's it. This is literally why I invited you to this podcast, is because you clearly have something to say. And I just want to, if you need it, I want to give you permission to say it as loudly as you can. Like, I don't care about your tone of voice. I don't care about, what life experience, lived experience is informing your perspective. I just want to hear your voice. You need to be ringing the bell. You need to be sounding the horn, and you need to let people know what you're feeling, what you have to say, and what you can do.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I agree that there should have been an acupuncturist on that panel. And I think from the paper that I wrote for Thomas Edison for my bachelor's degree, the case for mainstreaming acupuncture in America, you know, there are serious structural obstacles in the medical industry that keep us from those tables. They're also in the academic sphere. So that those uh the people that are invited to those tables have MDs, basically. And the AMA holds the right of access to those tables. Physical therapists and physician assistants, registered nurses, all fall under the AMA. They all are part of that system. PTs, I think I said that. Yeah. So in acupuncture cannot expect to enter mainstream medicine and have the status of professionalism and mutual respect while being parallel but not part. We can't do that. We have to get a much bigger foot in the door, so to speak. So like business success is one thing. It's important. And the business success is important for graduates and licensees. But it's not going to get our medicine taken seriously. It's just going to get a lot of copycats. And that's what I see. I think what's been happening with the state organizations, the American Society of Acupuncture, is that what it is? Going national and like standardizing each, trying to get each state association on board with, like, that's one of the most important growths in the last couple of years. And until our state laws get standardized and we can have portable licensing, our scope of practice is standardized, our like all that stuff, like we are kind of out in the fog still. We're still going to be perceived as woo woo because we don't we don't fit the system and we can't be easily inserted into this system. But I really strongly think, and there are a lot of acupuncturists I think who agree, is that we belong there and that it is compatible. And I know a lot disagree with that as well. I think there's room for both in the profession. We don't have to be a monolith anywhere except for within the regulatory view. So, if you want to take insurance, take insurance. If you don't, you don't. Like if you want to be, an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. If you don't, you don't. If you want to be whatever you want to be, this isn't a limitation. This is trying to expand opportunities and expand stability for the individual practitioners, expand job opportunities, especially. And I think that's one reason, like when you're saying that only 10 to 20% of acupuncturists are successful, like that's heartbreaking. And that those practitioners like have certain qualities that are, not necessarily directly related to, good practice, good medicine.
Yeah. The challenge, it's a big challenge. This is, one for the ages. Like I think what you said is absolutely true, that until we're credentialed in the same way that doctors are, um, that is definitely a big part of why acupuncture is still a little fringe. And because there's, wide um differences between what is considered scope and what is considered, the kind of core competencies that you have to have in order to be a practitioner that is licensed and credentialed and out in the world practicing from state to state to state, varies widely. And so there has to be some form of standardization and unification with that. But I also think we sort of need to pick a lane. You can either join the party, if can't beat them, join them kind of a thing, and become a part of the medical system that already exists and is the behemoth that everybody is
Hates.
has to, yeah, and has to participate in. Or we can continue to forge our own path and kind of be comfortable in the fringe that we're in, and at the same time adopting maybe some of the standardizing processes that you know Western science and medicine have standardized. That's true, but I also think that this is something I saw a documentary a while ago. It might not sound like it fully aligns, but it was about how organic certification sort of came to be rolled out as something that went at national and then eventually international. And they were talking about the problem that they had to solve was in the beginning, organic farming was not economically viable, is that it was so expensive to produce organic crops that at scale it didn't work. So none of the money people wanted to invest in organic farms essentially. And it was a big compound problem that needed to be navigated in order to figure out an economic model that aligned with the scalability that was necessary in order for it to be adopted en masse. And I think that's true with acupuncture too, is that we have to first, it's worse than 20%, by the way. It's 20% of the people that graduate and try to practice are successful. That's only 50% of the people that graduate. So it's more like 16-17% of the people that are actually successful. And that's dire, especially when you're saddled with so much debt. And when it comes to what we can actually do, I think it's egregious that this is the situation, but it is a situation. We can either whine about it or we can do something about it. And I think we're going to have to figure out a dance that involves the AMA and Western medicine and is trying to play nice with them and finds another path that isn't reliant upon our ability to solve that problem that way as another way to still be successful and be economically viable. If we can't solve the economics of the problem, then we're not going to get to have a conversation about this. It's going to happen in garages. It's going to be secret medicine that happens with dirty needles somewhere. Like that that's alternative, or in another country or something like that. Like that's what we're facing. And I think you bring up a lot of good points, and you really do kind of, you're wearing what I see in terms of people that have been through the kinds of things that you've been through and contended with the things that you're contending with. This is real, man. Like I'm not trying to minimize that in any way, shape, or form. I am trying to be a balm to that, and to kind of, I feel like I have in some ways a privileged position of being kind of an insider and an outsider at the same time. I never started to practice, and that gives me a different perspective because of the businesses that I did start. And I studied the medicine, and I know you people. I went to school. You were my friends. Like this is my community as well. And so, because I have a semi outsider perspective on the problem, I can bring in things that you guys haven't considered or tried or addressed or whatever. And the first problem that needs to be solved is we need to be able to cooperate. Like we're not, it's not you or me, it's not us or them. We're all in the same community, and the rising tide lifts all ships. Like we're either going to figure this out together, or we're all going to sink and drown together. That's what it looks like. So yeah. um I think we've covered a lot. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of close it out and let me know if there's anything that's still unsaid, or anything else that is worth mentioning before we kind of wrap it up. We still have time though. Don't feel pressure.
Yeah, I am also one who really values conversation and open dialogue. It can be difficult to sit with somebody who you disagree with, but we need to do that. And um, we do need to come together. And for that reason, like, that's why I'm here. Of course, I have anxiety about talking to somebody I don't know. I'm somebody, like I'm a shut in and I've got all my own issues, and like being out here, it's, you pointed out, it's a lot to ask, but it's important to show up for conversations, and that's the spirit that I'm here. And I don't think that I'm as articulate in an interview or, off the cuff speaking as I might be in writing, where I can really reflect and edit and reflect again and so on. So thank you for bearing with me through trying to feel out my points and be as clear as I can. We are swallowing a bitter pill right now. It's going down. Excuse me. And I think to me, part of what that bitter pill has to do with that acupuncturists tend to be too comfortable in the liminal space where we don't want to identify things because they might not help us and it might not look good for us. But we don't need to be afraid of that anymore. The research is so strong and the understanding of acupuncture is so strong that, it's moving forward. It's just a matter of, like how we position ourselves as a profession. And I do think that as an individual, you have to choose whether you're going to go mainstream and try and get yourself into a hospital, or you're going to do, a beautiful community or local practice. But as a profession, we don't have to make that decision. As a profession, we need to concentrate on making ourselves accessible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's, if there's one takeaway from this conversation, that's it. Like it's about becoming visible. And that means you have to plant your flag, and that means you have to do the uncomfortable thing. And that means you need to show people what you know and what you can do, and make them care, and you're not going to necessarily do that with, perfect eloquence and perfect delivery and the perfect amount of articulate, and knowing when to talk and when to shut up. Like that is a learned skill too. But um the one of the things that is encouraging is that people mistrust the most polished version of what they find online now. What people actually gravitate to is the mom and pop, is the person that doesn't seem like a professional talker. And so just being yourself is what sells. It's what sells, and it's what people want because they know that you're real. And that is something that I think is a huge kind of superpower and advantage to practitioners, is that everybody that went to school because they wanted to help people, not because they wanted to make money. If they did, ooh, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's so many easier ways to do that. This is not the easy way to do that. Like you're carrying the weight of the energy of an entire population of people on your physical shoulders, and you're you're nurturers at heart. And so if you just treat your marketing like a nurturer, if you treat advocacy like nurture, if you understand that your words have just as much power as your hands and your fingers, then that's what I'm advocating for. I think that we can solve these problems, but we have to do it together because when you feel like an island unto yourself, God damn, this is completely overwhelming. It's something that makes you feel like it can't be done, but it can if we're willing to work together. And that's the moral of my story. One thing, Molly, that I wanted to offer is if you're more comfortable writing and you listen back to this and you feel like we missed anything or you didn't communicate something that you really wanted to hone in on, I'll send you a copy of this and you can write me and then I'll add a little section at the end where I read what you wrote if that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there was definitely one section in there where I went off and didn't complete my thought. But yeah,
You did
thank
great. You did really great. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you, Dr. Molly Cook. I appreciate you for being on another fireside. And yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Lots of love.
you. All right. Basically, let me give you the background is that I live in New Jersey, and New Jersey does not honor the bachelor's degree that I got from Pacific College. So they
Oh,
wouldn't
wow.
license me. Even with a doctorate, they wouldn't license me.
Wow.
And so I had to go back after 10 years of practice and get another bachelor's degree. And I just finished that in a year, less than a year ago. And I did my capstone, which is like a big research paper for at the bachelor's level, the case for mainstreaming acupuncture in the United States.
Mm.
That's what I wrote it on. And for that project, I was able to, I had the time and the commitment and the motivation to sit and like glom through all the current research and literature on the profession right now, or what I hope is all. And it was really eye-opening. It's easy to keep your head down and not pay attention to the bigger picture when you're in practice. You can get a deep bias just by being in day-to-day practice and seeing how things work in your community and your patients. But when for the people who like put their head up and look at the bigger picture, um, there's a lot of factors. It's very complex to take into consideration.
Oh, absolutely. It's that's one of the things that I got out of having the podcast with Gretchen is that, I have a kind of an outsider perspective on what I think is going on with the schools. I've certainly done a lot of research on it and tried to get a definitive answer as to why the schools have been shutting down. And to be honest, the answers are always a little bit cryptic. That there's a lot of privacy around, the specific decision making tree at the root of every school. Um, there's obviously economic factors, but there's also social and political factors at play. And then, of course, when the feds are funding these schools and that kind of stuff, there's a dynamic involved with threatening to withhold funding that comes into play too, and those answers are harder to find. So I'm not somebody who thinks that I have all the answers in any way, shape, or form. These conversations are exploratory, but I also think that sometimes you need an outsider to come in. I'm not 100% an outsider. I did go to school. I might have made different choices now, but I kind of like how my path has unfolded, and it feels nice to be able to give back to a community that I care so much about. And I also believe in the efficacy of what you guys do, and I think it's the solution to a lot of the ills
Yeah.
that society is experiencing right now. So yeah, we just sort of get thrown into it. I think we're a little too young and immature to understand what we're really signing up for. I don't think that the people that are actually stewards of what that means and what all of the things that we need to be accountable for in terms of the pathway that you're laying out for a group of people is being stewarded with the kind of integrity that it should have. I think a lot of people feel duped or disenfranchised by the time they're out into the marketplace, and doesn't need to be that way. Like there's a way to do this that is not so overwhelming. So that's kind of that's kind of my motivation in the background. But
I love
specifically
it.
with these podcasts, I'm just trying to have interesting conversations around subjects that our audience cares about, and I want people to have a voice and a platform to ring the bell from. So that's it.
I want to get a reaction. I want to be part of this conversation. I think what I'm saying is not unique. I think other people are saying a lot, especially listening to your interviews. A lot of people are saying similar things. There's a lot of overlap in what I'm feeling. Um, but I'm also experiencing a sense of invisibility. And something that I haven't heard about is the abuse that occurs within the clinics of licensed professional acupuncturists. So that the employment experience for those of us, like Gretchen was talking about, you don't come out knowing how to raise funds. And so your main resource is to go work somewhere they hire acupuncturists. And that's your fate until you can get the funds to start a practice. But what happens in those clinics? There's a broad array of experiences. And I'll say the majority of mine have been fraught, really fraught.
Yeah.
And it's just not fair.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay, we could touch on that for sure. Like some of the things that you said, I didn't fully agree with your perspective on, but I think these are important things to talk about. And whether we come to an agreement or not doesn't even matter. It's just these are things that people need to think about.
medicine is not business. And I understand that that's a controversial statement. Was that something that you had a response to or that you understood? I didn't know if the nuance of medicine is not a business, that there's always going to be a tension between business, medicine for business versus medicine for practice, but it is a problem. It's a tension, and it has to be handled. If you're working ethically, it has to be handled. Medicine for practice is always the priority.
Mhm.
That maybe a lot of people may not agree with that.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the points that I think we should discuss. I think I have a slightly different perspective than you do, but I also agree with what you just said. So you have a strong voice. You really do. That's why I reached out to you. And you need to use your powers for good. And you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Well, yeah, I appreciate that feedback. All
yeah.
right. I appreciate the encouragement. You made some really good points. And
Thank you.
do I need to push that envelope? Do I need to have that conversation? And I think I do. I think these conversations have to be had because I'm not the
Yeah.
only one.
No, you saw it. Like it was a frenzy in there. The podcast only got watched 200 times. I don't know. There was over 60 comments. That like that it should for somebody that watched the thing 200 times, there should be like 10 comments. You know what I mean? And it was like six times that. So we're striking nerves. Like these are pain points. And there's an like the doing this is what should happen. We need to come together and work it out and support each
Right.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right,
Thank you so
Molly. It was a
much.
pleasure. Thank you
Same.
so much. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to include one last clip. Molly did send me a video of her reading something that she wrote out. She wanted to clarify and add to some of the things that she said on the podcast. And so here you go. Please enjoy.
Hi, David. Um, Thank you again for inviting me into this conversation. And thank you for the opportunity to reflect a little bit more on your questions and attempt to write a more cohesive response because I think my off the cuff response was not as articulate as it needed to be. And so I took the opportunity to just write something. It's brief, it's crystallized, it's very clear. So I hope it lands with some people. So after listening back, there were a couple points that I want to articulate more clearly. First, I think the instability we're seeing in the profession is not just about the schools closing, although that is a big one, but there are deeper fractures within the profession, including decades-long conflicts that have gone unresolved and which really exploded into full-scale hostility during the COVID era. Over issues that aren't even within our professional scope. That loss of cohesion has real consequences, and it's emblematic of that fracture that's been there all along. It hurt our public trust, and it hurt practitioners who are already isolated and struggling. Second, unlike most established professions, we have no employment standards or protections. That vacuum allows exploitative and unethical workplaces to go unchecked, and it leaves licensees extremely vulnerable at a time when they're carrying unprecedented levels of debt and often living in poverty. Some schools are now pivoting into nursing programs and other scientific fields, which says a lot about what they think a viable career pathway actually is. I believe meaningful reform needs to focus on three things, and I think it will be very hard to achieve. So your approach of encouraging success, entrepreneurship, and business building may actually be the only viable path for current licensees, but I think in the near future, licensees, there's going to be a fairly significant shift in the profession. I guess a lot of people see that coming. The three reforms that I see as being essential include aligning educational and regulatory standards to patient accessibility and the expectations of the American public. The second, and that's a huge one. It's a lot to unpack, and it's virtually like you almost never see regulatory reform. So that's a big one. And then the second one is establishing employment guidelines with accountability, such as in other serious professions. And finally, strengthening our professional culture so that we move away from scarcity and division towards shared success and standardized mentorship that will strengthen the fabric of the profession in the long term in a sustainable way. So thank you again for letting me clarify that. Thank you for your kindness and hospitality, and I just wish you the best.